enemy. You don't want them to get to the place. If I can keep anybody from getting there, then I can handle anything anybody's got to say.
Yeah, and I really applaud you for that because it takes a lot of strength and bravery to be that
But
honest. But I
to
feel
me,
like,
it's just about trying to help break down that stigma about mental health in general, and especially men and mental health. Like, just because we have, a little different biological makeup, we're not allowed to do these things. Like, it's crazy.
well, we're going to talk about that because those are topics that are good to open up about
Mhm.
because, there are stigmas out there. But just to let you know, I've been a music journalist for about 20 years. I'm
Mhm.
also a life coach for musicians, and we record the podcast and then edit it. So if there's
Okay.
anything, where you feel like there's a mistake, don't worry about it. We'll just edit
Right
it
on.
out. It's going to sound great. And then, do you have any questions before we start?
I'm ready to go.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries.
Well, today we have Chris Robertson of Blackstone Cherry, and you just released a new album called The Human Condition, which is your seventh album. So, congratulations on that, and
Thanks so
welcome.
much.
Welcome to
Thanks.
the
Thanks for
Internet
having me.
Podcast.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Sorry, it took a few tries, but we're here now, and we're gonna make the best of it. So,
Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, how are you surviving and thriving during this pandemic?
it's been weird, you know. I mean, yeah, I never would have thought ever in my lifetime that I would have taken essentially a year off at anyone's mercy but my own. I would have never thought that I would have got told that you really can't do what you do anymore. And that was at first it was like, oh, it'll open back up, and then the longer that went on and the more things that got canceled or postponed for an entire year, things like that, it starts to weigh on you. And this year's been tough. There's no two ways around it. I mean, not only everyone's financially struggled, but for me the bigger picture is how is this affecting people mentally? Because I know for me it's been I am a person who is manic depressive, right? But clinically I'm manic depressive and I have severe anxiety. So it's either really good or it's really bad, and um, it sometimes that side slips up on you, and it can catch you, But I mean, for me, this year has just been about trying to spend time with family and really looking inward more than anything. And I mean, I had to get on an extra medication this year. I've taken medication for 10 years now, roughly almost 9, 10 years, and I'm okay with it. That's what I've found that allowed me to wake up and actually realize the world can be beautiful. And the people in it can be as well. But this year it got to where it wasn't enough anymore, and I've had to try a couple different things. But it's a year like this has such greater impacts than just the surface impacts. It's the literally like I was talking to a friend the other day, and they're like, this whole thing, like you go through these different stages of like, well, what is my purpose anymore? Like I'm an entertainer. That is what I was born to do, in my mind anyways. And it's the only thing I've ever been, really passionate about. And for the foreseeable future, that's just hit or miss, whether it can or can't happen in certain areas. And then you've also got to worry about the virus, and then you've got people in my family that are, that don't have the strongest immune systems, whether they're fighting cancer or just old age or whatever. So it's like 6 million worries and one positive. But for me, I try to, no matter how many worries there are today, I try to find the one positive and like latch onto that thing with everything I got and just try to figure out a way to make that the bigger picture of the day.
Well, what is one positive that you could think of during this pandemic that you've enjoyed?
For me, it's this family time. Like, my son turned 8 years old this year. I got to be home for his birthday, which was nice. But this is the longest I've ever got to be at home with him ever since he was born. It is this year. So it's been amazing to watch, my kid grow up in real time instead of through FaceTime or videos or pictures or whatever, and then my dad is pretty sick, with cancer and stuff. So to be able to be home with him this year has been pretty amazing as well. The time I've got to sit and hang with him.
Mhm. I'm sorry to hear about your dad, but I'm glad
Right,
that you're able to spend
it
quality
is what it
time.
is. It is what it is, and we just have to deal with it. But luckily, he lives right beside me, so normally we sit in the garage and talk and do our thing in the afternoons.
Mhm. Well, you have the album The Human Condition, and it's got songs like Push Down and Turn and Again that have a bit of a mental health message. Is there like a common theme or a message that you're trying to give out to your fans with this album?
I mean, essentially for me, it's like that. It's okay to be a little fucked up. Just the hardest part for me was ever admitting that, right? So the biggest thing for me was going, I have a problem and I need help was the other big struggle, because as a dude, I was raised, like you can be the tough one in the family, you kind of embrace everything and take it on and just take one for the team, and you kind of be the rock figure in the family. And for me, it was finally trying to break that down and go, okay, you need help. Like you've got to do something about this now. Um, but talking to someone, the first time I went and talked to a doctor who specialized in mental health, um, it was the most eye opening experience of my life because I'm sitting here, I had every preconceived notion going into it. Like they hear the same thing every day. They hear this from so many people a day. But the difference is when you talk to a doctor that specializes in mental health, they haven't seen that story every day, and they know that because they know that each person is different, and you can't treat mental health like the flu or a common cold. You can't say here's some, take some Tylenol and do this and get some rest or whatever, and it'll all work out because that's not how it works. You know, and the other kind of damning thing about mental health is it's the only illness you seem to have to prove to someone you have before they will understand or begin to accept it a lot of times. I mean, it's so commonplace for someone to find out, my dad finds out he has cancer, and it's an immediate, oh man, this is serious, But when somebody says, I've been going through some shit in my head, man, it's common just to go, oh, you'll be all right, man. You'll brush it off. We all go through there, but realistically, I want to get to a place where when somebody says, I've been going through some stuff, that people can get the same amount of attention and respect. The people that truly need the help, I'm not talking about someone who is, craving attention or anything like that. I'm talking about someone who really needs the help. You know, my hope is that when someone says I need help, people's ears perk up instead of going, "Oh man," instead of brushing it off. It's like it spark a discussion. "Push Down and Turn" is a song that is literally inward about what I have to do day to day to to understand myself and to keep moving forward. It's not easy, and you know, mental health is it's kind of like the ocean, in my opinion. We know about 17% of it, and the rest of it is kind of up to the imagination until we find out otherwise. I mean, or better yet, it's kind of like space. It's what now they have tests, and you can do blood tests and figure out, well, what chemicals your body is not producing right, and things that help. And there's a million natural things. I know for me personally, like just getting out in the sunshine when the sun is shining, and just making myself get up off my ass and go outside and take in some of that natural just positivity from the sun. It's like, I don't know. It's mental health is the weirdest thing in the world, because I have days where, like, I want to, I'm the happiest dude on the planet, and then I have days where no matter what the circumstances are, it's just impossible for me to get going. And those are the days that are hard because, you know, for somebody like me, I know when I am and when I'm not the best version of myself. And I feel like when I'm not the best version of myself, that anything I do is not going to be good enough, like regardless, Um, perfect example of that is yesterday. I was literally so busy trying to get caught up around home, and I was very frustrated and trying to get a lot of things done. And I knew that I could not do this to the best of my ability yesterday and actually have a great conversation with you. And so I sincerely appreciate you being able to take that, and run with it today. So thank you. I really appreciate that. But it gets back to that constant battle up here, of good enough or not, like bad or good enough or not. Is it, and for me, it's like today I woke up in a pretty good mood and I was like, I'm going to have a good day. Like, and I've really been on this thing, like, if you believe something enough, you can make that a reality, and something as simple as saying, I'm going to have a good day today, if you make yourself believe you're going to have a good day, you're going to have a good day, I mean, it's like, but little things like that.
Yeah, the thoughts in our head do sort of affect our behavior, affect how we see things. And, sometimes those positive remarks are really going to help have us see life in a different way. But then there are times when, no matter how much we try to change our thoughts, we still are in this depression, or we still are in the state of anxiety. And I know in 2011, things kind of came to a head for you. And,
Mhm.
suicidal thoughts turned into possible suicidal action. So can you tell me, like, some of the feelings and some of the events that led up to that time?
I think it was, for me, just letting things build up over the course of, you know, let's see, I would have been 26, 20, getting ready to be 27. And I think a lot of it was just stuff that, through my childhood and then through school and, then trying to work with record labels and just being turned away, told certain things. And I was always the kind of person that I would just let everything build up. I would just take it and just be like, whatever, dude. And, you know, I could blow it off in person, but then when I would go home, or when I get alone, I would start like, damn it, man. Like, what was it that that person said? Like what is it about that I'm not good enough for them? Or why is it, are my parents arguing because of me? Or is this my fault, or things my fault? And I've always worried about stuff like that, so bad, but I always kept it to myself. And then finally I just hit a point where I couldn't do it anymore. I just broke. You can only bend so much and take on so much weight until you fall down. And ultimately for me, I think it was, I just carried so much weight on me of things that I could never let go of, or things that I hadn't really processed. You know, you don't have to let go of everything, but you have to at least process it. And for me, that was a big thing. My the two biggest things for me that have been devastating, other than finding out my dad, his cancer situation, were my grandpa Jimmy and then my mother in law, both passing away in the last, 5 years, 6 years. My grandpa was doing pretty good, and then it got really, really bad, and a week later he was gone. My mother in law was doing great, found out she had cancer, She went to have surgery and never came out of the hospital, and that was last year in November. So the holidays are like, for me, this is a really hard time of year because my grandpa passed in November, my mother-in-law passed in November last year, um, and it just, I don't know. I mean, Christmas is it used to be my all-time favorite holiday. I couldn't wait till Christmas, and since my grandpa passed, it's been something like I finally processed it and understand, and everything. But like, I also don't like do the graveyard thing. Like my grandma mentioned going out to the graveyard today, and I'm like, I thank you for mentioning me, and I'm sorry that I can't come with you, but and I mean this is no disrespect to that at all, but for me, visiting a graveyard is just a reminder that I can't call my grandpa and say, "Hey, Pa, I love you, Merry Christmas," or I can't hug him. For me, my my memories and my memorial to my grandpa are more inside my heart and out here on the farm where he bought when my daddy was born in 1963. And I live out here now, and it's for I had to learn new ways of processing things for myself because I found out that through finding out that I had issues and I had problems and I needed help, that I also needed to evaluate the way that I you know prioritize things and the way that I process things ultimately, because the grieving process is one of the most difficult and hard processes in life. We go from hysterically crying to laughing about something that's a memory, all in the blink of 30 seconds. And that's such an amazing interaction of the human mind to me, to be able to switch gears that fast. Um, and it just shows you that like how fast it can switch for anybody at any time when you're triggered the right way. And that's the thing. Like I just wish more people took it seriously. That's why when I write my portion of the lyrics for the band, it's in a song like "Push Down and Turn" that came from a photograph I had taken. Someone's like, "You should legit write a song about this," because I called the photo the circle of life. Because for me, that's what it is. Every morning I wake up, I get those bottles out, and I take my medication, and I go on about my day. And I literally did it just as a like, you know what? Screw it. It looks like a cool photo. It says something to me. I'm going to post this and just say a few words about mental health, and it like blew up on my Instagram. Um, and so many people reached out to me, and then there was one comment: "You should write a song about this." So we did. We wrote "Push Down and Turn," and it's funny. Like the chorus says, "Once by mouth, two times a day. See you next month, same time, same place." About a month after we got out of the studio was when things started not getting any better in the world, and things started not getting any better upstairs for me. And that was when I called my doctor, and I ended up on a new medication, once my mouth, two times a day. Kind of a little funny thing for me, but like I have to find the humor in things like that. You know, if people look like, "Damn, I can't believe you have to do that," I'm like, it's funny to me. Like I wrote a song and then it happened. How can you not kind of giggle? Somebody like me, like when you've been as dark as I have, you have to find the humor in anything that you can, because all it takes is one little thing and you can go right back there in a heartbeat. It's just like that triggered reaction when you're mourning someone. That happy to sad thing that you can do, it's so much easier for so many people than people realize.
Well, you know, speaking out about emotions like sadness and grief and anger, even, why do you think it's so difficult for men, especially, to put those into words and to be able to express that to not only a therapist, but also, to someone close, like a friend or a family member?
I think it's that fear of looking inferior. Honestly, for me, that's what it always was. Is like, how can I? When you're a kid, you cry on your mom's shoulder, you cry on your dad's shoulder. But then for me, like my mentality, I was always around like tough dudes. Like my dad was a guy that worked in lumber yards, and my grandpa bricked houses and house foundations. Like they were men who did man work, and they were the foundation of the house. When everything hit the fan, that's who everybody gathered around. You know, and for me, it was just like not that I feel like I had to be that, but I wanted to be that so bad. And truthfully, to some degrees, I am that. But I will never be what was in my mind for that, right? Because to me, it was like, well, you got to be Superman. The fact of the matter is even Superman has something that affects him, right? So nobody's bulletproof, nobody's anything. But I think it's just the fear of being looked at as demasculated or as inferior. If you say, "Hey, I need help because something in my mind is not right." Because look, I was in a band touring the world, was engaged. We ended up getting married at the end of the year. My wife is amazing and stuck with me through everything. She's put up with me for 20 years now almost. So
Oh, that's
she's a
great.
saint. Oh, she's a saint in her own. I couldn't put up with me for 20 years. I barely made it through myself. So I don't know how she's done it. But you know, um, once I realized that the people around me weren't going to look at me, because I remember clearly, I literally was sitting on my couch and I was rubbing my hair back and forth when I had hair. Um, and I was crying so hard as silently as I could because my dad was there and I didn't want him to see me like that. And I was literally pulling out parts of my hair, you know, crying and just looking at him saying, I'm sorry. Because I didn't want him to see me like that, and him and my wife both started crying and they're like, look, it is okay, man. Like we understand, like you're trying, you've reached out, you've got help. It is okay. And once I finally heard my daddy say, honey, it's okay, let it out. Like that, that did something for me that I don't think I could ever, because to me, he is Superman. I mean, there's no two ways around it. My old man is Superman. He's Batman. He's Superman. He's Captain America. He's all of them to me. Um,
Well, I think
but for him to say that, that it's okay, let it out. You got to sometimes, like, to hear that from someone that I admire so much, even more than just my dad. Like my admiration for him goes beyond that. It's I don't know, but it like it was something that really changed me.
well, he definitely is Superman. I mean, the fact that his love for you has gone beyond any kind of image of what it is to be a man. And
Mhm.
he's man enough to respect all parts of you, right? All the emotions that are within you. And, he just wanted you to get better and to be happy. And I
Yeah,
think every parent, that is thinking about their child first is going to just want to see their children happy, and to do whatever they need to do to help them. And that's why, when we hear about musicians that do end up taking their own life,
mhm.
there's always that thought like, what could I have done? If I had only known, what could I have done? Because it really, gets us in the heart, right? If there's anybody that we care about, even somebody who's a stranger that loses their life at such a dark time. And I know, like in 2011, you did try to take your life, or you thought about it very seriously, and you pulled back from it. Um, but you said there was something that pulled you back from that. Can you tell me
And
what
it was
that was?
I've been laughed at. I've been called everything, and I'll say it till the day I die. I literally, God stopped me. Said, no, this is not happening. That you and I turned back, went in my house, put the gun up, and I just sat on my couch and cried because I, I'd kind of not really been a believer that much. I was really, really on the agnostic side of saying, like, for me, and look, I'm not a preacher. I'm not saying everybody needs to. No, I am not that way at all. Because to me, the most beautiful thing on earth is freedom and people having the choice to believe in whatever they want to believe in, whether that be nothing or you know Coca-Cola can red. I don't care as long as you're a good human to other people, right? Like it really, like I'm not that kind of guy, but for me, that was a kind of a defining moment of me knowing, okay, there is some kind of higher power, you know, um, because it was literally like something just grabbed me and said no, you know, and I can't explain it, I mean, and like I said, I've been made fun of and told I should have done it and a million different things, and it really bothered me at first. And now, when people say that, I go, okay, that's your opinion, man, but because for every time someone says, oh, you should have done it, or, you know, or they mock me for believing in whatever I believe in, there's also 25, 30 people that go, thank you for speaking out about this. So, if there's one positive for every 10,000 negative, I don't care. I really don't, because at the end of the day, this is me, this is my opinion, and this is my story of what happened to me. And when I'm asked about it, I'm going to tell it, and it, to me, that's goes back to the beauty of freedom,
Mhm.
being able to say whatever the hell we want to, whenever we want to.
Right. Now, you mentioned being manic depressive, and oftentimes that, like, the symptoms can start in childhood early on. Can you think about and remember some of the first uh, feelings and thoughts that you had that kind of pointed to a mental health issue?
Yeah. I mean, when I was 10, 11 years old, that was a different time back then. You got to think that was 1994, 95, 96. It was a different world we lived in, and we lived out in the country. And I remember, I would ask my parents if I could stay home while they would go to town for a couple hours, whatever. And a lot of times I would get to. Um, and I remember, and I don't know why, like, and I still don't understand. This is one of those things that I've never been able to fully process. I can't understand why at 10, 11, 12 years old, I would sit and look up at a gun rack and go, I wonder if I shot myself, if anybody would notice. Because I didn't get treated bad.
Mm.
I mean, my parents argued, but like they treated me good. They treated my brother good, my sister good. But I can remember that at like 10, 11, 12 years old. And that's something that I vividly remember sitting on the couch, like looking up at that 22 rifle and going, I wonder if I did, if what I just wonder if people would even care, and I don't know if it was not having a bunch of friends at school or what it was, but yes, I mean, I do have memories of being, a kid that should be the furthest thing from your mind is looking at a gun, wondering would people even care. Um, but that's the true reality of and I can't imagine being a kid in today's society, to be honest with you. Like I was a kid in the 90s. Life was so much simpler. There was no social media, there was no, nobody had a cell phone in their hand. We went outside and like played with rocks and shit. Like I mean, like we literally had it so much simpler then. And like I really worry for kids now. My little boy's 8 years old, and I'm like, I really worry about boys, but I really, really worry about little girls now. I don't have a little girl, but our drummer John Fred has three little girls. John, our bass player, has two little girls, and man, our society just like has got to where it expects a certain thing from people so much that no wonder kids are so sad and depressed these days. Like, give them a break, man. Let them be kids again. Like, 10-year-olds shouldn't be worried about being fashion models. Like, I'm sorry, it just, I don't know. I feel like we've gotten so ahead of ourselves sometimes with our kids that ultimately we're setting them up for failure. I can't help but think that it gets back to just basic school, right? Like, let's get back to teaching kids trades and like teach kids how to do their taxes, teach kids real life stuff. Teach them how to use their math and their geometry and everything, like to build stuff and to do your taxes and do things that people need real world experience for, because there's so many people in like trade schools. God, I wish trade schools could come back, because I think there's so many kids that, trade schools and art programs and music programs, there's so many kids that like need a way of expressing themselves. And whether that's fabricating stuff in a trade school or building stuff or working on cars or doing ag class and growing gardens and taking care of animals, or playing an instrument or painting, like those things are such massive outlets. And we've taken all those things, a lot of it, out of a lot of school systems. And instead we've put a phone or some kind of device in everyone's hand so they can keep up with the person next to them. And to me, it's like competition is one of the worst things. It's one of the greatest and worst things, because a little bit of competition is amazing, right? Because that's what gives us all that desire to do better. But when you look around and all you see is I should be this, I should be this, I should be this, no wonder this country is full of so many people that are depressed. I mean, like, shit, man, it's like we literally say you need to be this to be great. And the great thing about America is, to me, has always been that anybody can have a chance. So let's stop, trying to pigeonhole society into being one way or another. Like, just let people live their lives, man. Love who they want to love, do what they want to do, and let's all get along a little bit.
Yeah, that is one of the really wonderful things about the United States. And I mean, our country is just having the right to choose our own path. And, there are a lot of pressures out there. Uh, but I'm glad you explained um, what it's like to be in a depression, because I think that depression, the thoughts can often lie to us. Just like you looking at the gun and thinking these thoughts, and also like taking blame for things that weren't necessarily your fault, but there's something about the disorder that causes you to think that way. You also talked about anxiety. Can you give us some examples of some of the anxious feelings you've had, and like examples of what goes through your head when you're anxious?
So we used to go out to the merch booth every night. Um, and we haven't done that since 2011 or 12. Um, for the first 6 years we were on the road, we went out every night and we would stand there at the t-shirt booth, and anybody that bought a t-shirt or a CD or anything, we would sign it for them. And I'm not saying we don't do autographs anymore, because it's, when the world opens back up and people can be interacting with each other, more regularly, come out by the bus at the end of the show, find the bus, we'll sign it for you. Like, it just the way it is. We do not mind at all, but it's ultimately because for anyone who's never had a panic attack, for me, it's the closest thing to drowning while standing on land I can imagine. Right? Like, you can't get your breath. It's very disorienting. And, you know, it even gets like, I've had panic attacks so bad where I feel kind of hazy, like, but it's, it's like a complete feeling of, yeah, I mean, the best way I can describe it is like you're drowning standing on dry land, but there's nothing you can do. And for me, it's just a lot of times when I have a really bad one, I just need to get somewhere really quiet and just relax and remember to breathe. But and like they hit everyone differently, because we all have different fears and things of that nature. But it's just, a lot of times for me, I'll start feeling really, really overwhelmed. And then, like, I'll start getting really, really nervous on top of that. And then I know what's going to happen. And luckily, I have a medication that can really help those when I feel one coming on. It's essentially an antihistamine that just kind of
Really?
opens you up and allows me to breathe a little bit better.
Mhm.
When I feel one of those coming on. But it also has an adverse effect. Some people have tried the same medication I'm on, and it intensifies theirs. Um,
Oh, okay.
but for me, it allows me to breathe and be able to kind of just focus again.
You mentioned something about medication that I think is really important, that each medication will affect us in different ways, whether it's side effects or efficacy. Can you kind of describe what your journey has been to find the right medications for you?
Yeah, I mean, like, look, for me, it started out. Um, I started on one medication, and it seemed to help, but all I could do was sleep. And then I had another medication that I had side effects from, so I couldn't use that, and it didn't seem to help me at all anyway. So it was just kind of a bust. But, like, with a lot of medications, it takes a week or two for it to fully be in your system, and you gotta, give your body time to acclimate to those things. But ultimately, I think it was the third or fourth medication we tried seemed to just help take the edge off enough that everything was bearable, and I could start to try to process how to deal with certain things. And I've been on that medication now for several years. And over the years, I'm up to the maximum dose of that medication. That's why I now have an additive with it. But, I mean, the thing for me is I've tried getting off medication. I've tried doing, anything I could to not have to take medicine. And that just ain't in the cards for me. Like, nothing I've been able to do helps me as much as taking my prescriptions. The medications that are prescribed for the issues I have work, for me anyways. And, I know there's a million people that are like, no, you can do other things. And okay, yeah, anybody's able to try that. I did. But for me, what worked was taking tablets. Like I have an antidepressant slash anti-anxiety medication that I take in the morning, and then I also have my anxiety medication for if I feel like I've got a panic attack coming on, I can take one of those and try to at least curb it a little bit. But I walk around with that, and I don't mind. It really doesn't take up that much space in my pocket. It's not a big deal. Nobody else has to take it for me, so I don't know why anybody would have a problem with it. But so many people do. They're like, "Oh, you shouldn't take medicine." I'm like, "Well, you shouldn't be judgmental." So, you know,
Very true. And what I find interesting is that, we have medications out there for depression, anxiety, and bipolar, and so many different things that have been tested that, we know that for the long term, they can be good for you and really improve your life. But then there are other things that people tend to grab that aren't as healthy, but they seem to have no problem doing that, which is like
oh, trust me,
alcohol
I
or,
I
or
drank my problems away many times. I got to a point where I was drinking about a fifth of Jim Beam on stage a night, dry straight out of the bottle. Um, and yeah, it was because I like to have a good time. And at that point, I was probably 265 pounds, and I was a big guy, sweating my ass off. So I could drink quite a bit without getting crazy. It just so much sweat, and I just a big dude. I had a high tolerance, but also, it was about 50% because I like to have a good time, and about 50% because it helped me not think about the stuff I didn't want to think about. And that's not healthy. You know, People can say, well, taking prescriptions aren't healthy. They're not. Well, that I'm not on any narcotics. Like I was able to get off of all of those. Um, and nothing I take is highly addictive. There's no, like, everything I get, I can travel the world with. I have an antidepressant, a blood pressure medication that I take, and a heartburn pill. Like I literally, that's what I take. You know what I mean? So and for me, it's like, I would much rather do that than like I come from a family of a lot of alcoholics on one side, and I see what that does. I know what addiction does to my bloodline firsthand. I know what addiction does to my bloodline. So
What have
for
you
me,
experienced for that? I mean, with that, with your family and even with
um,
yourself?
family so for family members, I've got several on one side of my family that have had their struggles with alcohol their whole life, and various drugs. For me, the alcohol never got to where like I had to have it every day. Like I could literally go 3 or 4 days. Like I wouldn't drink at home hardly ever. When we get on the road and play a show, I drink a bottle.
Mm.
Just one of those things. But my biggest problems I've ever had where I got really addicted to Xanax. Um, when I first went through my breakdown, and then pain pills. Um, I got really really bad on those. And thankfully, I was able to get off those. I haven't had a pain pill in about, trying to think, about 7 years, I guess. Like an actual narcotic. Like yeah, I'm taking ibuprofen or Advil or something, but like an actual prescribed narcotic, I haven't taken one of those in about 7 years. Nor have I taken a Xanax in that long. And for me, like that's a big ass win.
No, that's huge. It's huge. I used to be in the pharmaceutical industry and
Mhm.
I got to know about what it's like to be addicted to benzodiazepines like Xanax
Yep.
and having to get off of painkillers. I mean, it is a huge mountain that you've overcome and then
Trust
a
me,
lot of work. A lot of
there's
work.
a very direct member of my family who has had many battles with. It started, with lower grade pain medication, and then it goes up. And I'll hear one time that it's great and that things are better, and the next thing I hear is like things are not great, and you know, I, you can reach out and do everything you can, but it's ultimately it's a situation where, much like I found myself in, until I was ready and until I was able to actually do something about it myself, nothing was going to change. And that's when you feel like when that addiction clicks in your head and you're like, I have to have this. Like I would literally get woken up 10 minutes before a gig, and I would roll over and grab 3 or 4 Xanax out of a bottle, pitch them in my mouth, and chew them up,
Mm.
walk into the stage, or I wouldn't play. Like I felt like if I didn't have my Xanax, I to chew up, I couldn't go play the show. And anybody that's ever had to take, anything like that knows that they kind of zombify, a little bit. And here I was chewing 3 or 4 up at a time and walking on stage. And then, I don't remember 2 years of touring. I don't, you know, from 2011, most of 2012, and like all of 2011 pretty much, and 12 are just kind of a blur to me.
Was there an incident that made you say, you know what, I can't take this anymore. I do need to go and do something
It
about
started, and for me, I realized I had to quit all the pills. Um, we had been home, and we had gone on the road, and I was in England, and my wife called and said, "How you doing today?" And I was like, "I'm all right," because she knew I was struggling really bad. And she said, "Well," that's funny. She literally just texted me. She said, "Well, are you sitting down?" And I was like, "I can be." She said, "I'm pregnant," and I was immediately thrilled because I had something positive in my life for a change. Even though I was playing sold out concerts, and I I had all the pills I could need, like I was miserable, really, And when she told me that, I said right then, I was like, all right, I got to get off this shit. I cannot keep taking pills. I've seen what it does to families firsthand. I cannot keep taking pills. Um, and I I weaned myself off of them, you know, and I will never look back at the stuff again. My kid means too much to me to take another one of those.
That's great. I'm sure your life also changed after you were off those pills,
Oh yeah.
and I can only imagine things getting brighter. Uh,
Oh yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. It was a pain in the ass letting them go, because to me that was a great thing, but I also knew that number one, this will eventually kill me. And number two, which was more important to me at the time than killing me, was I'm going to lose, the only thing I really care about right now, which is my wife and our, unborn child. If I can't get this together, so she had never said that to me, but I completely felt that way and felt that I had to do something.
well, I'm glad that that incident was a happy moment, and that it also helped
Oh yeah,
to improve your life in so many different ways. Um,
absolutely.
there was something that I read in an article, and there was a time when you said you hated playing music and that you needed to get high just to get on stage and play.
hmm
What what kind of led up to those feelings?
That was just like the full blown midst of me having a nervous breakdown. I had gone to the doctor and I'd explained everything. And, for me, it was, I didn't want to be playing music at that time, not because of Ben, John, Fred, and John, but because of me personally and because of all the things that we had had to go through to try to please record labels over the years. I was just over it. I was done with it. I never wanted to do it again, at that point. And, you know, I was also, eating a lot of pills at that point. And you know, when you're zombified, you don't want to do much of anything really. Um, but I, for me, I can't imagine right now. It's hard to take myself back and even imagine the thoughts in my brain to not want to play music because I mean that's these days that's a lot of what keeps me going. Is me and my guitar. I can't help it. It's a part of who I am.
Yeah, and it brings so much joy to everyone who listens to it as well as you
Well, we
playing
try.
it.
We try.
One thing you mentioned is being manic depressive. And a lot of people are familiar with depression, uh, but the mania part, can you describe like an incident or what it feels like when you're going through a manic period?
Like for me, it's like if you ever look at a graph and you see the peaks and you see the valleys, right? So for me, it's like I'm either it's weird. Like I have days where I'm climbing, right? I'm climbing up and I'm sliding down. I'm climbing up and I'm sliding down, right? Kind of like the old guy on The Price is Right. The guy climbing the avalanche or whatever. Kind of like him. I get it wrong and I slide back down. But then there are days where I can't get footing and I can't dig my fingers in enough. I can't scream enough to make the snow move. I can't do anything to get it going. That's like the depression side for me, right?
Mhm.
The the other side of it for me is like sometimes I get on like such just like a good day, like on such a high of the day, right? That I'm just like I'm so wide open that I feel like I annoy the living hell out of everybody. Because I'm like, hey, let's do this, let's do this. I got a million ideas. I want to do this. And I'm in such a great space. And then the next morning I wake up and I'm like, I don't want to do any of that. And that is the real struggle. Like that for me, that's the hardest thing to deal with is that internal struggle of because of the way my brain works. When it's great, it's amazing. And there's so many things that I want to do and get done. And I can plan these things, but then that next day the switch can flip and it's completely different. And I immediately regret every decision I made the day before to do something.
Mhm.
And that so like for me, that's you know, that's the other side of it. Is even when I'm like on top of the world happy, there's a worry in my mind that like this is great, but tomorrow I'm gonna like not want to do what I said I'd do 2 days. And that's a weird place to be, but it's I'm learning new ways to process things every day. I mean that's the ultimate goal in life to me is to figure out how to become the absolute best version of me. That way I can hopefully help someone else do the same.
Hmm. Right. And to accept yourself for how you are,
Well,
you know?
look, I've said a million times, like Demi Lovato came with that song, "It's Okay Not to Be Okay," and like I've been saying, like, and I'm a huge fan of hers, by the way. And but for years, I've been saying it's okay to be effed up. Admitting it's the hard part, and that's. But for me, like that's just it. Like we're all a little bit off, or we would all be so boring. Like we've all got little ticks and little things, and some of us those things work differently. Each individual person is made up their own unique way, and you can't take away a person's emotions or feelings because those are the one things that that person owns, regardless of anything. Right? You can take every possession I own. You can strip me of everything to where I have nothing, but I still have my emotions and I still have my perception and my feelings, right? And I think if we could all just get to a more human level where we put emotion, feeling, and our own perception of each other, the way we want people to look at us and treat us before all the bullshit we own and all the stuff that we see to try to keep up with the next person to make sure that we're fitting in so we can be cool. Like I think it'd be a lot cooler if we all just got along and liked each other. And then, I mean, I get all my clothes at Walmart and people say, dude, you got such a cool style. And I'm like, I bought everything at Walmart. And they look at me like, what? And I'm like, yeah,
You
I
got
don't
great
have to have a
taste.
$400. Well, I'm like, I ain't got to have a $400 sweater, man. You know what I mean? Like my 14.95 one from Walmart keeps me just as warm, So I don't know. I just ultimately, I want, I think I was born in the wrong time period because I'm like a flower powered child anymore. Ever since I went through my thing and I found God and I was out here looking up at the stars out here at our house one night because I live in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky. You can look up and like there's no light pollution hardly. It's just stars as far as you can see. And I was looking up one night and I was like, here I am standing on, you know, some grass out here in good luck, Kentucky. And I'm looking up at these stars. And every one of those stars could, you know, we don't know how far away they are. We don't know what if it's a full galaxy or what it could contain, or how many are even still there that have, exploded and, have gone out, but we're still seeing the light. Like I started looking at it and I was going, man, my opinion really matters, huh? Like what I think just really matters. And I realized in that moment that, you can't, you have to take life seriously, but you can't take it so seriously that you forget to live it. And for me, it's like, yeah, bad days are bad days. Good days are great days. But the goal is to get it to where the bad days are all right days for me, because I can deal with all right. All right's a hell of a lot better than where I used to be.
Mhm. So, would you say that about your life today, that you feel like you are able to kind of make I guess, have the bad days not be as bad and maybe
Sometimes,
temper the good days? I'm not sure.
no, the good days are great. They're amazing. Like the days that are good are the greatest. For me, though, like I don't know that I'll ever be able to just, because for me, completely suppressing the bad days is what got me in the position I think that I ended up with to begin with. And by not, saying something when I was a kid, going, Daddy, why do I think like this? You know, or even when I was a teenager, going, what? Why do I think about certain stuff? Um, but for me, it's not about, and I don't think I would ever want to. completely get rid of the bad days because there's balance in everything, and in my opinion. And without a bad one every now and then, I don't think I would ever fully appreciate the good,
That's
just because of my personality. And that's, look, I wish I could be a sunshine and daisies all the time kind of person, but that's just not me. You can hear that in the way I sing and the way that I write lyrics to some of the stuff. I can be that guy, but that is not really who I am. I like to think about stuff or make people think about stuff. I enjoy a good conversation, and I don't know, like to me, music is such an expressive outlet, and it's the one time that I feel like I can say anything, and the music is kind of a shield, really, you know, in my opinion, especially with a song like "Push Down and Turn" and "When Angels Learn to Fly," because those are two songs that are very very close to me. And when you've got three dudes in a band with you that are as tight as we all are and have been together, never a line out change, you really feel like you can let your guard down because they've got it for you and say anything you want to, and to me that's just amazing.
well, I think anyone that you can be really completely honest and feel comfortable being who you really are,
Mhm.
um, is going to feel good. And I think honesty. It's sometimes hard to be honest, but I think once we really do that, it's refreshing. It's
The-
refreshing for the people that listen to it, and of course, for ourselves, just to really say what's on our mind.
oh, 100%. Like to me, the greatest gift you can give somebody is your honesty and being 100% transparent. Like I would much rather somebody tell me I don't like that song than go, man, your album's great, and then turn to his friend and go, God, I hate that half that record. Like just tell me the truth, because for me, the only way I can ever improve upon myself, compliments don't mean anything, right? Like compliments are a very gratifying thing to receive, and it makes you feel good. Like, oh yeah, I love getting compliments. Like it makes me feel good. But at the same time, compliments like for me, it's a thing like it makes you feel good for like 10 seconds. Sometimes it lasts longer if it's if the conversation goes to that point. But that, hey man, you guys are great. I'm like, thank you so much. And it means the world to me. And then I have to immediately push that out of my mind. And the thing that gets me will be the guy saying, man, I missed that one note in that solo tonight, or or I wish you'd have sung this part. That stuff for me goes. That guy or that girl had, you know, enough respect and nerve to go. I wish you'd have done my favorite part. Like to me, that is super cool. And when people have a legitimate comment, like I'm a guy that reads reviews, right? Like I read the reviews of our records. And I love the negative and the good ones because I can learn something from every single one of them. The positive ones we learn what people like, and the negative ones we learn what people hate us.
You know, you've also uh, talked about therapy in the past and what it's brought to your life. Can you tell us some of the benefits that you've received just going to therapy?
you know, for me, I had a friend recently that was talking about it, and they're like, I just don't know if I could talk to somebody that I don't know. And I said, well, let me just put this in your Rolodex and think about it. I said, if you tell me all your issues, I've got a preconceived notion because I know your life. I've got a preconceived notion for everything you could tell me. Anybody you know that knows any of your personal life, the minute you start telling them this, their preconceived notions are going to start turning of going, oh, well, I wonder if it could be this. I wonder if it could be this. To where you go to a complete stranger who is specialized in studying the human brain and the way it works in correlation to health, and they don't know your family history. They don't know, about you and your dog. They don't know about your relationship with your kids, your wife, your your husband, they don't know all these things. They are literally listening to a person they've never met, explain to them why, number one, they feel the way they do that brought them into the office, right? Because when you finally go, okay, I'm willing to go talk to somebody I never met in my life about things inside my head, that's a huge step. And I can commend anyone who takes that because it's not easy, you know. Even after my appointment was booked, I was so nervous about it. But I can also say that talking with the doctor that I talked to did just as much for me as about anything on the planet. Because to talk to someone and have them to go, okay, I understand, and I think I understand why some of these things may be, happening. We're going to try this, see if we can help, and they don't judge you at all. Like you don't have to worry about like, are they going to say this? Are they going to say that? Number one, patient, you know, doctor confidentiality forbids it, and number two, who gives a shit? Like, if he does go home, or if he looks at one of his friends and goes, "Dude, that last guy," if I went into the doctor and he did something that truly helped me, and he walked into his to one of his colleagues like, "Damn, that last guy, man," but he did something that helped me, I don't care because at the end of the day, he still did his job, and he did an act for me and listened to me enough to help me. I don't care. Like I said, dude, I've been made fun of by the world over 13 times. There is nothing that anybody on this planet can say that I haven't thought that or worse about myself at this point. I don't care. I'll be open and honest and outspoken about mental health and how people should pay more attention until they put me in the ground. Because had someone said that, had I been able to turn on, had YouTube been a thing, or Instagram, or even podcasting back then, right? Had been a thing, and I could have turned it on and saw people that I dug their music talking about the things that me and you were talking about, it would have changed my life. So, thank you for having me on to talk. I sincerely appreciate that. And I hope what I said made sense.
It made perfect sense. And Chris, thank you because you're doing exactly that, which is changing people's lives for our listeners and for your friends. And,
I
love it. I love
Hey,
it.
look, I don't know that I've ever changed anybody's life, but if I could, if hearing me talk about how crazy I am, let somebody go, maybe I should check in and get some help, then it's all good, you know.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Chris. I
Right.
really
Well, thank you
appreciate
so
you
much.
being on the
I sincerely
podcast.
appreciate it. No worries.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Huh?
All right. We'll
Thank you.
see you. Bye bye.
Yep.
Hi. I'm Mari Fong, producer and host for Check Your Head, Mental Health for Musicians podcast. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you like us, please follow us on social media at Check Your Head Podcast and visit us at checkyourheadpodcast.com, where you'll find over 100 mental health resources that will assist you in your mental health recovery. You rock, and we love you.